we have time for some questions, but if anyone's hungry, lunch is officially being served on the same field as yesterday. And we also have some indoor space because we were worried that it would rain. And yes, it's gluten-free. We're having local grass-fed burgers. So enjoy.
Kate Shanahan from Napa.
You have to speak up.
I'm Kate Shanahan from Napa. And I wanted to say thank you very much for your laser-like presentation. I don't want to get on your bad side, ever. But so I'm going to ask my question, then I'm probably going to have to run. Because
no, it's all right.
I would actually ask you, sincerely, as a human being, to consider maybe rethinking and working with the libertarians, because I do believe you, with your power and influence, could gain traction with an organization like that. And what they're saying actually is in total agreement with your last slide, where you were saying government regulation is kind of what got us into this Coca-Cola creates the food pyramid structure.
Right. Here's the problem. The libertarians are anti-government, and they have good reason to be, because government has behaved badly. No argument. The problem is we can't solve this at an individual level. We need government for this kind of mass change.
Or we need to get government out of the way.
The problem is you can't expect government to do the right thing. You have to coerce them into doing the right thing. And that's what everyone in this room is about. That's what you're about. That's what I'm about. And that's what we need to do. But the libertarians would say, no, we just need to exclude government. No, we need to include them, and we need to get them on our side. And there are ways to do it.
Well, good luck to you. Thank you so much.
Hi, is this?
Please.
Great talk. Just wanted to ask, in your study, was there an effect of cereals on diabetes?
No,
at
none.
all? And
No effect of cereals whatsoever.
And if not, why not, given their comparable glycemic index?
We did not do it by glycemic index because that data is not available, within the Food and Agriculture Organization statistics database. We don't have that data. We did do pulses, nuts, roots, vegetables, and tubers, which would have a low glycemic load because it's high fiber, right? And that did not have any effect either. And I was actually surprised. I figured that would actually be protective. Turned out not to be in the model, and I was kind of shocked. But it did not have an effect. But we can't do glycemic index with these kind of data. Maybe that's for the future.
Were you surprised by the cereal results or lack of?
No, I wasn't. No, I really wasn't, because glucose is about insulin secretion, okay? But diabetes is about insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is the big issue in type 2 diabetes. And sugar is the thing that really drives that, contrary to what my argument with Dr. Feynman might be.
My question is, do you personally eat sugar?
No.
And how many grams per day?
I have dessert 2 times a year. When I'm in New York, I have a piece of Junior's cheesecake. And when I'm in New Orleans, I have bread pudding with whiskey sauce, and that's it.
Do you eat fruit?
What?
Do you eat fruit?
I'm not a big fruit lover. I've just never been from when I was even a little kid. It's not my thing. I eat some berries. I'll eat strawberries, blueberries, but I'm not a big, like apples, peach lover, just tasting.
Yes, you said that sugar explains 25% of the increase in diabetes. Did you analyze the other 75%, or do you have any insight into that?
No, we have
or
no
is it
insight into
unexplained?
that. No,
So
at this point, we have no insight into that.
Just completely unexplained.
There's a lot of genetics involved. There's other things. I can't tell you at this point, but 25% is pretty darn good.
Thank you.
Paul Jaminet actually wrote a blog post a while back about what really affects glycemic index. And I know it's not as big a focus here, but I was going to ask, but the point he made actually was that fat is what lowers GI the most versus fiber.
Right, well, in part because of absorption,
Sure.
absorption changes with fat.
And do you ever promote that or talk about that?
I am for getting insulin down any way you can. Okay, my clinic, for instance, the Weight Assessment for Teen and Child Health Clinic at UCSF, that is our overriding goal. We don't have a multidisciplinary clinic, we have an interdisciplinary clinic because everyone has bought into the same ultimate issue, which is insulin's the problem, get the insulin down. And everyone at this meeting has been saying that, as far as I can tell, since I got here, and there's a thing going on over there in insulin signaling policy at the same time, kind of pain in the butt, because I would have liked to have been there. But everyone agrees insulin's the bad guy. And we know why insulin's the bad guy. Because it causes energy storage and it also causes cell proliferation. Okay? Both of which are bad. So getting insulin down is the answer. And you can do it two ways. You can reduce insulin secretion by restricting glucose, which is basically what the low-carb diet is, or you can reduce insulin resistance by reducing sugar. They're both important. They're both good. Well, you know what a low processed carbohydrate, low sugar diet's called? Real food.
Can I ask one more thing? There was also a recent study, and I know this is kind of counterintuitive, but they were showing that if you consumed some amount, not a large amount, but some amount of fructose 30 minutes before a meal, it actually lowered the area under the insulin curve.
I haven't seen that.
I'll show it to you.
If it's fructose alone, it's a problem because dietary fructose is poorly absorbed. Okay, that's one of the reasons why it hasn't appeared as a sweetener on the market, is because it's so poorly absorbed that the bacteria get it, chew it up, and cause extensive gas, bloating, diarrhea, etc. That's one of the reasons why the food industry hasn't moved to it as a sweetener. For just that reason. So if it was a preload of fructose alone, then it's got significant artifactual problems in terms of its interpretation. Yeah, Matt.
Robert, this is more of a request for your opinion than a question. And please correct me if I'm interpreting this stuff wrong, but there's new information that's come out to show the difference in metabolism in rodents and humans of fructose. And I will preface this in saying that I'm considering the context to be a hypercaloric diet, because let's face it,
let's stick to hypercaloric diet.
That's the diet of North Americans, okay.
That's right.
So in rodents, it seems like the majority of it, maybe 60%, goes to de novo lipogenesis, whereas in humans, it's the reverse glycolysis, and it goes into sugar and whatnot. But let me finish before you comment. I look at it and I'm like, okay, so in the rodents, the lipids increase, but then in the humans, once the sugar goes into the bloodstream, the body burns that preferentially for fuel, and then the lipids increase. So the end result is the same. What's the big deal? And aren't you confusing everybody by saying this because you're making sugar look not as bad as it should?
Okay, no. I disagree with the premise. Here's why. I agree that the de novo lipogenesis in humans is less than what we see in animals in the hypercaloric situation, but it is still very significant. Now, if you look at de novo lipogenesis as a function of state, that's where we get into the issue. Okay. So if you look at the original Parks and Hellerstein paper from JCI 1998, the de novo lipogenesis for an oral fructose load was 3%. And everybody said, 3%, who cares? Okay? But the problem is, number one, those were in normal people who were not calorically overloaded, and they were fasting. So they were already glycogen depleted, because you already deplete your glycogen by 50% from just the overnight fast.
And it was pure fructose.
And it was pure fructose, so a lot of it didn't get absorbed. So, artifactual issues. Now, if you do that same study, number one, with obese people, number two, insulin-resistant people, number three, fed people, and number four, glucose and fructose at the same time, which is what Hudgens and Hellerstein did in JCNM 2011, March 2011, then the de novo lipogenesis increased to 25%, six-fold over what it was in the fasting state. So all of the food industry people say, de novo lipogenesis is nothing, it's irrelevant, it's a non-issue. These are controlled fructose feeding studies. Number one, we're not controlled. No, that's number one. Number two, we're not underfed. Number three, we're not glycogen depleted. And number four, no one eats fructose alone. Yeah. So take those and rethink the de novo lipogenesis argument, and then now it makes a whole lot more sense. So that's the first issue. You had a second issue too.
I was just wondering, in the end, to me, it seemed like it was just going to lead to the same result. So it happens all the time in our community. I present a seminar on nutrition. I'm like, yeah, I might get the mechanism wrong, but at the end of the day, the solution's still the same, or the end result's still the same. So you don't make as much of a big deal out of that. It's like in both cases, even if the de novo lipogenesis in a human being is lower than that of a rodent, you are still getting increased triglycerides. It's just a different mechanism. So why are you?
For sure. I agree with you. I don't understand that. I really don't. Plus, did you see that paper that was in PNAS from was it Orlando, that showed that there are fructose receptors on beta cells?
Yeah.
The point is that normally the hepatic extraction of fructose, if you don't drink a 20-ounce Coke, is relatively complete. You don't get a serum fructose level from a 20-gram fructose load. But if you take a 35-gram fructose load, you get a 6 micromolar fructose level. That's enough to then stimulate the beta cell to over-release insulin, which drives all of this too. The bottom line is we have a limited capacity for fructose absorption, metabolism, and action. And we are over the top by my count threefold. That's what I'm saying.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a policy question. It strikes me that the position of sugar now is somewhat comparable to the position of tobacco in the mid-1900s. Heavily subsidized in terms of the growth of tobacco. Very, very rich industry, a lot of money into politics, very sort of socially accepted, popular thing to do.
Yep.
And in a matter of 50 years, that turned on its head.
Right.
Was there a defined strategy that turned that on its head, and could that strategy be employed in this debate so that maybe not tomorrow, but over a relative time period, that effect in society, where in American society tobacco is largely a shunned activity,
Right.
can be brought to bear in this debate also?
No argument. I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to say, is that that's what we need to do. We need to follow the paradigm of both tobacco and alcohol and how we did that. The bottom line was this was a bottom-up movement, not a top-down movement in both cases. Okay? For instance, Mothers Against Drunk Driving made alcohol consumption a problem. Okay? Before that, it really wasn't, was it? Okay? Seatbelts are the perfect example. Okay? Seatbelts started in Australia in 1968. Now, did the Australians know that seatbelts would save lives? No, but they thought it was a good public health thing to do, and it had no risk. The big three, now the big two, fought tooth and nail to keep seatbelts out of cars until there was a federal mandate in 1979 to have seatbelts in every American-made car. Did it save lives? No, it did not. Through the entire 1980s, people continued to get killed in cars. Why? Because there was no mandate to wear them. Mothers Against Drunk Driving made that unacceptable at each state house in the country. And to this day, right now, there is a federal mandate for the inclusion of seatbelts in cars, and there are 50 state mandates to wear them. Okay? Because of the bottom up. We can do a bottom up here, and that's what we did ultimately with tobacco as well.
Was it a bottom-up groundswell for
Yes,
tobacco as well?
absolutely,
Was it?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.